With the 2022 elections fast approaching, we often ask ourselves the question, who do I vote for? And in this video, I'm going to talk about how do you choose who do you vote for. In this video, we're going to be talking about two things. First is about democracy, and second, about how to be a better voter. Before we talk about voting, we need to talk about democracy and the critics of democracy. One of democracy's greatest critics was actually the great philosopher Plato. When he published The Republic in 375 BC, so that's about 2,500 years ago, he criticized a lot the idea of democracy. So, the question Plato was asking us was, why should anyone be allowed to run for public office? And the reason Plato had this question is because he made an analogy of the government being like a boat. And when a boat doesn't have a captain, who do you approach to become the captain of the ship? Plato said, obviously, we're going to look for someone who is a sailor or someone who is a captain and has experience sailing and leading a boat. And that's the person who should become a captain or the leader of that ship. So then he asked the question, why can it be anyone who can be elected into public service when just like a boat, it should be someone who has experience and has the credibility to become a captain? The second criticism Plato had of democracy is the fact that it is highly subjective, meaning it's very easy to convince people with very flowery words and made up promises. So Plato makes the example of a doctor versus someone who sells candy trying to solve a problem. A doctor would always tell us the harsh truth, and people would not be willing to accept this harsh truth. Whereas someone who is a salesman or someone who is selling candy would just give you candy and always appease you because it's easier to get your vote and stay in power rather than do the right thing and make difficult decisions that don't always make people happy. The third criticism that Plato had for democracy, which is kind of connected to the second one, is that people are generally uneducated and they can't make good decisions in terms of public service because they don't have any experience or idea of who are the people that they should vote for or what are the metrics that they should use to determine whether that person is fit for office or not. Because people are often subjective and they just pick people that they like, it's likely that the election process is going to be flawed. One of the simplest ways we can answer Plato's criticisms is to become an educated voter. So here is a list of things which I think are important when choosing who to vote for. First, if at all possible, you can go back in history and find out why or how that person started leadership or how did they start in public service. Second, do they have a good track record? If someone is running for re-election, in the time that they were in office, were they able to successfully make change in the community? Or conversely, if someone is running for office for the first time, does he have a good track record outside of public office? So does he have leadership positions in organizations or leadership positions in the company that he is part of? And do those positions that he hold have him in a good esteem or does he have a good track record there? Third, what are his or her stances on policies that affect the community? Of course, policies are going to be very subjective because we all care about different things. So people who are environmentalists care a lot more about the environment. Other people are going to push a lot more for education, but each of us have a different belief of what should be a priority. And most of the time, this is one of the factors which contributes to why you choose a certain candidate because of them being an advocate of that certain policy which is going to make a significant difference in that place where you think it's important. So, in short, it's very important to know what your candidate stands for and where is their stance on certain policies which affect not only the local community but of course the whole nation, because we are also voting for senators and the president. Fourth, affiliations. Who is this person affiliated with? Who does he show support to? Who does he openly say that he agrees with? And in many situations, who are the people supporting this individual? So sometimes everyone knows that launching a political campaign takes a lot of money. So it becomes a big question, especially when a certain candidate isn't very well off or doesn't have a lot of money to begin with. How was he able or how was she able to raise a lot of funds to launch their presidential campaign? So it's important to find out who are the supporters and who are they getting money from to launch their campaign. Fifth, and this is going to be the last one for me, is community. Who is this person's community? Where did they come from? And are they relatable as a person? So, for example, if they come from a rich community, is it likely that they're going to understand the struggles of the working class? An example of this is when a certain senator came from a rich community and then they saw that there is a problem with obesity in the Philippines, and that the policy that they thought of making was to ban only rice. So, long story short, community involvement is very important. And I guess it's in this place where you can also see part of the reason why that person started in politics. Because when we're trying to serve a community, it's more likely that that person is really in there for the service and not for the money. I hope that it wasn't the case that we live in a country where there are really politicians who are corrupt. I wish that we live in a place where everyone is in public service just for the good of the people. But we need to be realistic enough to understand that that's not the reality that we live in. But at the same time, I don't think that it's fair that we're going to tell every politician that they are corrupt. I don't think that it's fair that we demonize every politician. So I think that when we think about it from the perspective of these politicians and we really observe closely the things that they do in their office, the communities that they serve, and who they are in their own life, then we can realize who are the ones who are corrupt and who are the ones who are not. At the end of the day, it's your choice who you want to vote for. Maybe you really just want to vote for someone because you like that person. Or maybe you just want to vote for that person because you like them, but maybe they don't have such a good track record. And it is still your choice. But if you're someone who is on the fence and you want to find out whether or not this person is a good candidate, not only because I like them, but because it's good for the Philippines, then I think that everyone should analyze and examine their decisions more closely. In the wise words of Dr. Jose Rizal, ang kabataan ang pag-asa ng bayan. But people misinterpret this quote by pushing the responsibility onto the youth, onto the children, when in fact, they're not doing anything themselves to contribute to change. And I tell you, now is the time. Voting is the way to contribute to the change that we want to see in our country. This is our time. It's no longer the time to push the responsibility on the people who are younger than us. Now is the time to take responsibility for ourselves. Not everyone can be the president, and not everyone has the same influence that the president has. But everyone has the ability to choose who the president will be. So to my fellow Filipinos, what happens to the Philippines is our responsibility. It's time to vote.